oh, Merry Christmas! Oh, oh, oh. Hello, how are you? Merry Christmas! You look wonderful. Yes, you do. You look great. All festive. Oh, do you have a seat here? Okay. Hi.
I had him over by the, yeah.
We all set? Have you been good little boys and girls? Have you helped your mom and dad a little bit? Have you? Okay. And this is so good. You look so good. Yes. Oh, I have some presents for you. Now, this is the first of many presents that you'll get, but because you've been so good here, I thought I would come early and give you an early present. Oh, and we have names on these, so this is wonderful. All righty, are we ready? This is for Owen. Oh, don't be shy. Don't be afraid. Oh, hello. Hello. Oh, 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 oh. Oh, and this is for Luke. Hey, Luke. Oh, that's great. And I have one here for Landon. Oh, 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 oh. Gotta be careful of those bumps in the rug. Harper? Do I have a Harper here? Harper! Oh, and look at your hair! You look so wonderful! Yeah! And Maeve? Is that Maeve? Mm-hmm. Oh, baby. Merry Christmas. You're welcome. Oh, I have one for Stella. Is that for you? Oh, Merry Christmas. All right, and I have Charlie. Ooh, and I have one more. Patsy. Yes. Merry Christmas. Does everybody have one? Yes, everybody has one. And have you been good? You've been good. And all your parents are here today. I want you to turn around and say to your parents, I love you. That's so nice. And promise to be good. And I promise I will bring you Christmas presents if you stay good to Christmas. Can you do that? Can you do that? Do you want them to open them now? Or
Sure, they can open them.
if you wish to open your present now, you can.
You got mistletoe.
Well, I have to go out and feed my reindeer now and get ready. Because Christmas is coming soon, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas, everybody! Merry Christmas! Oh, 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 oh! Oh, and look at all that! Oh boy! Oh boy! Oh boy! Oh boy! Oh boy!
Thank you, Santa.
Bye!
Great boys and girls.
Yeah.
Sure. If you opened your present, and even if you didn't, you can go put your book in your cubby, and then come right back over here.
Put it in your cubby, buddy.
Polar Express.
Go put it in your cubby.
Look at my babe.
Good boy. Now go sit down.
We're going to read the Polar Express.
Hey, watch out.
On Christmas Eve, many years ago, I lay quietly in my bed. I did not rustle the sheets. I breathed slowly and silently. I was listening for a sound a friend told me I'd never hear, the ringing of Santa's bells. Late that night, I did hear sounds, though not of ringing bells. From outside came the sounds of hissing steam and squeaking metal. I looked through my window and saw a train standing perfectly still in front of my house. It was wrapped in an apron of steam. Snowflakes fell lightly around it, and a conductor stood at the open door of one of the cars. He took a large pocket watch from his vest and looked up at my window. I put on my slippers and robe, and I tiptoed downstairs and out the door. "All aboard!" the conductor cried out. I ran up to him. "Well," he said, "are you coming?" "Where?" I asked. "Why, to the North Pole, of course," was his answer. "This is the Polar Express." I took his outstretched hand, and he pulled me aboard.
I think I read this book before a long time ago.
Did you?
Well, I don't remember it very much.
Well, that's okay. The train was filled with other children, all in their pajamas and nightgowns. We sang Christmas carols and ate candies with nougat centers as white as snow, and we drank hot cocoa as thick and rich as melted chocolate bars. Outside, the lights of towns and villages flickered in the distance as the Polar Express raced northward. Soon, there were no more lights to be seen. We traveled through the cold, dark forests where lean wolves roamed and white-tailed rabbits hid from our train as it thundered through the wilderness. Thundered through the wilderness. We climbed mountains so high it seemed as if we would scrape the moon, but the Polar Express never slowed down. Faster and faster we ran along, rolling over peaks and through valleys like a car on a roller coaster.
Where?
The mountains turned into hills and the hills to snow-covered plains. We crossed the barren desert of ice, the great polar ice cap. Lights appeared in the distance. They looked like the lights of a strange ocean liner sailing on the frozen sea. "There," said the conductor, "is the North Pole." That's where Santa lives, right? The North Pole. It was a huge city standing alone at the top of the world, filled with factories where every Christmas toy was made. At first, we saw no elves. They are gathering at the center of the city, the conductor told us. That is where Santa will give the first gift of Christmas. Who receives the first gift, we all asked. The conductor answered, he will choose one of you. Look, shouted one of the children, the elves. Outside, we saw hundreds of elves. As our train drew closer to the center of the North Pole, we slowed to a crawl. So crowded were the streets with Santa's helpers. When the Polar Express could go no farther, we stopped and the conductor led us outside. We pressed through the crowd to the edge of a large open circle. In front of us stood Santa's sleigh. The reindeer were excited. They pranced and paced, ringing the silver bells that hung from the harnesses. It was a magical sound. Can you sit down on it? They pranced and paced, ringing the silver bells that hung from their harnesses. It was a magical sound, like nothing I'd ever heard. Across the circle, the elves moved apart, and Santa Claus appeared. The elves cheered wildly. He marched over to us and pointed to me. Pointing to me, he said, let's have this fellow here. He jumped into his sleigh, and the conductor handed me up. I sat on Santa's knee, and he asked, now what would you like for Christmas? I knew I could have any gift I could imagine, but the thing I wanted most for Christmas was not inside Santa's giant bag. What I wanted more than anything was one of the silver bells from Santa's sleigh. When I asked, Santa smiled, and then he gave me a hug and told an elf to cut a bell from the reindeer's harness. The elf tossed it up to Santa. He stood holding the bell high above him and called out, the first gift of Christmas! He was holding the bell. The clock struck midnight as the elves roared their approval. Santa handed the bell to me, and I put it in my bathrobe pocket. The conductor helped me down from the sleigh, and Santa shouted out the reindeer's names and cracked his whip. His team charged forward and climbed into the air. Santa circled once above us and then disappeared in the cold, dark polar sky. Look at all those elves. As soon as we were back inside the Polar Express, the other children asked to see the bell. I reached into my pocket, but the only thing I felt was a hole. I had lost the silver bell from Santa's sleigh. Let's hurry outside and look for it, one of the children said. But the train gave a sudden lurch and started moving. We were on our way home. It broke my heart to lose the bell. And when the train reached my house, I sadly left the other children. I looked at the doorway and waved goodbye. The conductor said something from the moving train, but I couldn't hear him. What? I yelled. He cupped his hands around his mouth. Merry Christmas, he shouted. The Polar Express let out a loud blast from its whistle and sped away. On Christmas morning, my little sister Sarah and I opened our presents, and when it looked as if everything had been unwrapped, Santa found one last small box behind the tree. It had my name on it. Inside was the silver bell. There was a note. Found this on the seat of my sleigh. Fix that hole in your pocket. Signed, Mr. C. Who's Mr. C?
Santa?
Yeah. Mr. Claus, right? Santa Claus. I shook the bell. It made the most beautiful sound my sister and I had ever heard. But my mother said, oh, that's too bad. Yes, said my father, it's broken. When I had shaken the bell, my parents had not heard the sound. At one time, most of my friends could hear the bell, but as years passed, it fell silent for all of them. Even Sarah found one Christmas that she could no longer hear the sweet sound. Though I've grown old, the bell still rings for me, as it does for all who truly believe.
Why can't anybody else hear it?
Here. Now, boys and girls, we are going to make Christmas trees over there with lots of candy and frosting for you to eat for snack today with your parents. So, Charlie, you are the hand sanitizer, right? Do you want to come right over here and maybe start with Kenzie and give her some hand sanitizer?
there's enough seats there for siblings too. So
Mommy, where's
little brothers want to do it.
Kenzie, you can find a spot and start working with your